Good morning, students. Our today's topic in this subject of history O levels is the short questions, and this is the lecture number 3. So, actually, we are covering the short questions in the syllabus of the history O levels. So, concentrate yourself. I have done a lot of work in this lecture, so this will be much more easy and understandable for you to read these questions and learn them. So concentrate yourself. The first question for today is, what reforms were made by the British after the War of the 1857? That was the War of the Independence. So we are going to read the reforms made by the British. The British issued a proclamation at Allahabad. Allahabad was a very important city at that time as far as political activities were concerned, bringing the war to an end. The British recognized some of the grievances of the Indians, but in practice, they paid little attention to their promises. So they know the difficulties, but they were not ready to resolve them. The British said that they would not interfere in the religious beliefs of the people. They would pay due regard to the ancient property rights and customs. They agreed to no further territorial acquisition. Rights to the appointment in the public service were guaranteed. So they promised a lot, but in practice, they done very little. The next question for today is, how was Bahadur Shah Zafar II treated by the British? So Bahadur Shah Zafar was the last Mughal emperor in the subcontinent. In September 1857, Delhi was regained. Bahadur Shah too surrendered peacefully, but his sons Mirza Mughal, Mirza Sultan and Mirza Abu Bakr were brutally murdered. In spite of the Mughals surrendered peacefully. The Mughal empress surrendered peacefully, but even then the British brutally killed his sons, including Mirza Sultan, Mirza Abu Bakr and Mirza Mughal. Their heads were presented to the emperor as a lesson. So look at the cruelty of the British, because British wanted to give a lesson to the Mughal emperor. So look at the cruelty of the British. They presented the heads of his sons to the Mughal emperor. After the war, the Bahadur Shah Zafar was put on trial and sentenced to life imprisonment. He was sent to live his years in the Burma, where he died a natural death in the 1862 after passing a very hard years of his last years in his life. The next important question for today is, how were the Muslims treated by the British? The British hired men from the groups such as the Sikhs, Pathans and Gurkhas for the army, who they thought they could trust. The Muslims thought British education and the use of the English to be un-Islamic, so they objected to it. But the British withdrew funding from Muslim schools and Muslim education fell into decline because British thought the Muslims are the main source of the hurdle in the progress of the British in the subcontinent. So they withdrew funding from the Muslim schools and institutions. The British had planned this so that Muslims could remain illiterate and not gain public office. They blamed the Muslims for the War of the Independence of 1857. Muslims were also not allowed jobs in the civil services. The next important question for today is, what was the 1858 Proclamation Act? The British said that they would not interfere in the religious beliefs of the people. They would pay due regard to ancient property rights and the customs. They would abide by all treaty obligations. They would also agree to no further territorial acquisition. They would guarantee the right to appointments in the public service. So they promised a lot after the War of the Independence of 1857, but they done practically very few. The next important question for today is, what is the importance of the national language to a country? National language is necessary to identify a country because in most cases any country is identified through his national language. It is to be recognized worldwide. It helps to show the culture, the literature, poetry is found in national language. It links one another. So the people of that country is linked through the national language. It helps in official work and is the language of the communication. The next important question for today is, what is the importance of Urdu to Pakistan? Urdu is the national language of Pakistan, which helps for its recognition for Pakistanis. So we Pakistanis are recognized in the world through our national language. It is the official language in government. It is also a medium of the instruction in the institutions. Urdu poetry, prose, etc. is famous worldwide. It unifies all the Pakistanis. So either we are living in any area of the Pakistan, we are linked together through our national language. Urdu is compulsory subject up to the class intermediate and is an elective subject for degree classes. PhD in Urdu is also possible from Pakistani universities. The next important question that we are going to read is what is the origin of the Sindhi as a regional language? It is the older language which is spoken in Sindh. It was written in Marwari and Arze Nagri script. So Marwari and Arze Nagri were other languages through which Sindhi was originated. It was later written in Arabic script. It has a number of the famous poets and prose writers as Sachal Sarmast and Shah Abdul Latif Bhittai. In 19th century of a famous journal, Talimul al-Kashful Tawheed was published. The next important question for today is, what is the origin of the Punjabi? It is the regional language of Punjab. It was first used by Hafiz Barkhurdar in 1080. It was called Al-Hindko. It has words from the Arabic, Persian, Turkish languages. Famous folk tales are Hi Ranja, Soni Mahiwal, Sassi Punnu, etc. Famous poets were Waris Shah, Baba Farid, Bulle Shah, etc. So this was the origin of the Punjabi. So at first it was called Hindko and finally it was called Punjabi. The next important question for today is, what was the origin of the Pashto language? The history of the Pashto language can be divided into three periods. The first period dates from around the 2nd to the 13th century. The first Pashto poet of this period was Amir Khan Pahalwan. The second period begins with the Mughal invasion of the India in the early 13th century and lasted for about 100 years. During this period, the quality of the Pashto prose was at its peak. Perhaps the greatest scholar in this period was Hazrat Mian Umar. The third period extends to the establishment of the British rule and is also considered to be the golden period for Pashto literature, as so much high quality writings was produced. Famous writers from this period include Akhund Dardiza and Khushhal Khan Khattak. The next important question for today is, what is the origin of the Balochi language? Balochi is the language spoken by the majority of the people in the Balochistan. There are many kinds of the Balochi, that is Suleimanki and Makrani. So these are again two languages through which Balochi was originated. The Balochi language was brought into Balochistan by tribes which migrated from northwest Iran. So actually this is the language of the Iran through which it was introduced in the Pakistani province Balochistan through the tribes, nomadic tribes. They were nomadic people who rarely settled in any one place for long periods of the time. This explains why there has been little development in the Blochi poetry, because these peoples were not permanently settled in Pakistani Balochistan, so they were on the move. That's why there was very little improvement in this language. Before partition, Blochi literature was beginning to decline. There were few books or magazines published in Blochi, and even the Balochistan Gazette was published in English. The first time Balochi language became known outside the region in was in the 1830, when the British traveller W. Leach reported in the Journal of the Asiatic Society about the existence of the Balochi language and literature. So, this was the lecture, students, for today. We have read almost 10 short questions in the subject of the history today. So I hope so it will be much more easier and interesting for you people to understand these questions now. So read this question, read this lecture again, understand it, learn it, and make your notes. Thank you so much.